Yo, what's up, Mirko? Welcome to the Mircap. That's right, that's a new name for the MPL Indonesia recap, or whatever we're recapping this week. Today, we have MPL Indonesia Season 12, Week 2 in the Mirko recap. That's what we're going to be recapping, as the name implies. Man, what a stacked week, and what a disappointing week. A sad week for the Big Troopers, me included, but definitely not for the RRQ Kingdom. Arashi's definitely in the air, flying in Cloud 9 right now. But yeah, that's what we're going to be talking about, guys. So let's get straight into it. Welcome to the Mircap. We're going to start with MPL Indonesia Season 12, Week 2, Day number 1. Wednesday. Joking. Thursday, 27th of July, 2023. We started off the day with Bigatron Alpha versus Dewa United, and it ended up being a 2-0. Bigatron Alpha, how were they able to completely dominate Dewa United? Well, for me, to be completely honest with you, I honestly feel like Bigatron Alpha are in another level when it comes to MLBB gameplay. I think that's the safest way to put it right now. In the draft, I honestly feel like Bigatron Alpha were able to outclass Dewa United with their bans heavily targeting the teamfight heavy style that Dewa United were trying to play. As we all know, Dewa are a very 50-50 team. They will always try their best to get team fighting heroes. Heroes who can pick off, heroes who can force the issue and get past the early game towards the mid game. That's why we saw Bigatron Alpha ban Uranus, Yves, and Fanny in the first game, and Uranus, Valen, and Yves in the second. The only reason they didn't ban the Fanny this time in the second phase was because the Fanny was already banned out by Dewa United. So yeah, that's another bonus for you guys. And through the way that they played, it's just the same way. Bigatron Alpha, they tried their best to just limit the team fights that Dewa United tried to present, right? Dewa United still went for their very team fighty compositions, as you can see from the screen right now, but Bigatron Alpha, they went for a pick-off slash, I would say, for game number 1, it was more pick-off oriented, right? They already had the Kaja, they had the Valentina and the Wan, and then they had just two very sustainable players with the Lancelot and the Terizla to deny a lot of the neutral objectives getting in. But in game number 2, I think it was a complete outdraft because of that Diggy last pick. If you guys didn't watch it, that Diggy last pick, I expected Diggy to be picked up by Dewa, but knowing Leo Murphy, yeah, not really going to expect the Diggy next time around. Bigatron, though, however, they were able to completely flex their Diggy because, as I remember, the Diggy was actually a mid laner. It's a mid lane Diggy and an Arlet Roam. No, a Fredrin mid and a Diggy mid, but it's the Fredrin Roam. Yeah, it's confusing, but it worked for Bigatron Alpha. Very well played from them. And honestly, for Dewa United, what I would say is maybe do not pick the Ling first pick. I do not think this is a viable option for a team like Dewa United up against the top tier teams. Maybe if they're up against the other teams like Rebellion and Aura, even then I wouldn't really, give the green light of picking the first pick Ling, because I honestly feel like the first pick Ling just didn't give them much value or any value in that matter. It actually just helped the enemy team to counter them, completely take them out. Usually we see a Ling and an Angela in first pick for the second phase, but first pick blue side, yeah, no, I don't like that, and I think that sealed the deal for Dewa. I instantly signed my prediction. Right after the Ling first pick for Dewa United in game number 2, I predicted Bigatron Alpha instantly after that. But yeah, for Dewa, I think improving in the drafts is going to be crucial here, because not only the Ling wasn't the only error. I believe the Cho pick towards the end was also a big error and a big oversight, especially considering the Diggy was wide open for the taking. Even though it was unexpected, you have to kind of respect Bigatron Alpha. They're very experimental in a good way, but sometimes in a bad way as well. Moving on to the next match, we have Alter Ego, or Onyx actually, taking on Alter Ego. This one was a very interesting matchup because it's basically kind of one of the matchups where it is the best team in the world currently facing off against the worst team in MPL Indonesia. This was a tough one. This was Onyx also utilizing their lineup with Albert, not CW. And we'll have to take a look at this and dive again. As you can see from the drafts here, I honestly think for Alter Ego, the drafts were not actually bad, especially game number 1. This was still with Rekt in playing. This wasn't with Rossi. This was the game still with Rekt, and that's why they went for the Florin in both games. Game number 1, I actually liked it. I didn't really, I didn't despise it because for Alter Ego mainly, personally as well, I've always felt like Alter Ego since season 11 are no longer that trio mid-centric team. I think they were a very trio mid-centric team back when Silly Boy was still in his heyday, was still in his assassin era, but now that Father Time has gone to him, it just doesn't feel like putting him on an assassin works. That's why the Baksha pick was really good. That's why the Martis pick in game number 2 was really good. Hey, they were ahead in game number 1. They weren't really ahead. We don't need to talk about that. I think they just got completely outclassed, and I don't know how, but Kyrie and friends, the rest of Onyx, were able to shut down Silly Boy on a Baksha, on a utility jungler. I want to talk a little bit more about game number 2 because the Martis in game number 2 did a lot. I believe it was 2 turtles or 3. Might have forgotten how many turtles they have gotten, but nonetheless, it was still Martis and Sully Boy doing well on the Martis, on the utility, until they threw the Alter Ego passive and the Onyx Albert special of defending and turning the game around. I think Albert is a goal laner who has potential to have that dog in him. I've been mentioning this a lot in my streams, but PH goal laners for the most part, Super Marco, Benny Cutie, Kelra, to name a few on top of my head, they always have that dog in them. Meaning, when the team is behind, they can carry the game, despite the team being behind. That's why for Omega, it was Kelra for a long time. It was called the Omega Timer. For Benny, it's the ambush strat that he was able to utilize many times. And for Super Marco, just the beast. Yeah, but I see that in Albert. I honestly feel like if Albert gets more playtime here and he develops more as a player, he might be able to rival CW's position as gold lane, as main lineup gold laner. Though I do feel like he is still a bit far from doing so. CW synergy is definitely better, I would say, still for the rest of Onyx. But Albert's getting there. Remember, this is only the 4th or 3rd time that he's played with the roster as a gold laner. So I'm very interested to see the developments. Meanwhile, for Alter Ego, again, going back to their issues, they tried utility jungle and it didn't work out. They tried to play with the side laners and it didn't work out. They tried to go Baksha jungle and try to play for Beatrix, didn't work out. But it didn't work. I honestly feel like this was the closest they've gotten to victory. Still, prioritizing the side lanes, not the trio mid. And I honestly feel like they should learn and try to improve on this instead of going back. Because later on, we'll get to a point where we'll talk about that in the next match. Because for now, that's all I'll say of Alter Ego versus Onyx. Then we're going to move on to Friday, 28th of July, 2023. EVOS Legends took on Geek Fam. And this was a big, or not a big match per se, but a pretty interesting match. A very, very cool match to watch, because this was a match that was, my goodness gracious, it was not what I expected. I didn't expect EVOS Legends to 2-1 Geek Fam, because I expected EVOS Legends to 2-0 Geek Fam. Looking at Geek Fam's performance in the last week, it was abysmal. Taking a look at what they have done right is the fact that they have actually understood when to bring out things like the Fanny. I think in game number 1, we don't talk about game number 1, because game number 1, it was just completely Geek Fam getting manhandled by EVOS Legends. I will, however, talk about game number 2, because game number 2 was very interesting. The Fanny first pick with the Faramis on red side was a very interesting new insight. We haven't seen Niall, the rookie jungler from Geek Fam, play Fanny before, and the fact that he was able to play it shows you just how confident he is and how confident the team is for him. He was able to even find a lot of good outplays here and there against the Kadira, against a lot of the members coming in from EVOS Legends. And Choloiski also made its debut, something we've never seen before. We have seen before, but we haven't seen him, Beloy, find success on the Cho. Finally, he was able to find success on the Cho. And it was insane. It was interesting. This is also still Geek Fam with Marky. So Marky's playstyle with Geek, I honestly still think that he might, like in game number 1, he was still very good against EVOS Legends, don't get me wrong, but it feels like he's just playing by himself. He doesn't really have that synergy and the coordination with the team just yet. I heard that behind the scenes, who's actually strategizing, who's actually helping the team theoretically with the drafts and stuff, is Beloy and Marky. So Marky is a helping hand to Beloy now, but in game, I'm sad to say, as a Marky fan myself, I honestly think Shadera might be better here, especially considering this performance. And in game number 3, it kind of showed a bit more. He was struggling in that game, wasn't really able to find the proper ultimates, but nonetheless, they were still able to win the early game up until the very last second, and then Evo's Legends turned it around because Geek Fam went for the base, went for the kills. Though a lot of people will definitely blame Niall for the loss here, I want to point out that Luke is to blame first. I love Luke. I love the players. Again, this is nothing personal if the players are watching this. But Luke, what were you doing on that glue? We'll take a picture or a screenshot here of where he was and where the entire team was. Just a mini-map picture, but what was going on? I was so confused. You had the Lord in the mid lane. You had everything pushing in slowly. There was no real reason for him to open up that far in. And that hook that Dreams landed, ultimately ending up with a boy having to use the Feather Airstrike to save or to try to save Glue, gave Evo's Legends the right opportunity to come back. But even then, I would say Geek Fam were still able to end. Despite that little mishap from Luke, yes, Niall made a big blunder as well, diving into the base instead of hitting the turret. And it's GG, no re. Unfortunately for Evos, I will have to say this game was a very lucky game for them. I think Geek Fam had the better draft for game number 2 and 3, hence why I predicted Geek Fam in game number 2 and 3. We're going to move on over to the next match, which is Dewa United versus Onyx, which was a very interesting game because it was Drian in for Onyx and still Halbert in the gold lane. Now, I think we'll talk a little bit about, well, for Dewa, we've already mentioned, they're a 50-50 team. They like to gamble. They wait for Watt to get ahead or to get to a point where he has that power spike to fight Onyx. And when that happened, you did see glimpses of brilliance from Dewa United, I will not lie. But against Onyx, a very adaptive team, it was just hard to get their number. Even with Drian, even with Albert here, even though it's not their main lineup, it shows you that the 3 months of playing Rome has definitely impacted Drian. His Franco is disgusting. And if he gets more playtime, he's going to be very cool, very insane. But he's an Onyx. He has to compete against Keyboy. I don't think he's going to get much playtime unless the team or Yebo and Adi wants to give him more playtime and let Keyboy rest a bit more. But that also comes to, well, that's where my point is actually going to go. If they keep on changing their rosters like this and not giving their main lineup playtime, I'm not too sure how this will impact the synergy, coordination, and the overall feel of the Onyx team. I just hope they don't get too complacent international wins in MSC and Snapdragon, because I've seen a lot of teams, Echo, suffer from that, right? They get a bit too complacent, they get a bit too happy with their standings, and they don't stay hungry. For Onyx, I said in Snapdragon, I said in MSC, one of the reasons I really love Onyx is because they don't get happy. They don't get satisfied. They still are very hungry. And even Adi has mentioned this in Twitter and in social media that he's so glad that he has finally found a team who never gets satisfied. And if Onyx continues this road, they will be stellar as usual. But if not, then teams like RRQ, like Bigatron Alpha, and the other teams, even Evo's Legends, who are climbing and looking for that top position, will be back. Moving on to the next point here. Let's go to day number 3, Saturday. And this is a good match. These were really good matches. Rebellion versus Aura was a big disappointment, in my opinion. Disappointment because Aura Fire, I forgot if it was game 1 or 2. I believe it was game 1 where Van, the man, got Hayabusa. They completely threw an 8,000 gold lead. Kimura is the big problem for Aura Fire. A lot of people say it's high, but honestly, in the game with Aura Fire, when Aura Fire picked the Grok, it was definitely Kimura. I mean, the man had no reason to be opening up these bushes. The man had no reason to not be using his first skill while opening up these bushes. You know, opening up the bushes as Grok, you need to do that. But not using your first skill against a Franco who's hidden and not seen on the map, That one is very amateurish. That is a very MDL mistake. Heck, I think it's a bit of disrespect to say it's an MDL mistake because most of the MDL players wouldn't even do that. I think it's a very tier 3 mistake and something that needs to be corrected ASAP for Aura because that game was very winnable. Heck, I honestly feel like it was a winnable game. It was a winnable series for Aura Fire. So it's sad to see for them that Rebellion were able to stomp them, but it's great to see for Rebellion that they finally found their groove. Audi TZ getting the comfort pick, getting a pick-off hero is what he's comfortable with. Kaja, Franco, Edith. And if it's not that, heroes that can open up the map. Novaria gives him more information, gives him more ways to dictate and shot call around the map to utilize the Charging Bull. Now, I've made a nickname, actually, for Rebellion Zion's duo or dynamic duo here. It's Audi TZ, who makes the shot calls, and their weapon, their very aggressive weapon that was let loose in week number 1. Highs in week number 1 was a disaster. He kept on going, overextending, making unnecessary movements across the map. And I said it in the Mircap last week. If Rebellion can utilize this aggression properly, they will be a strong team. And so they did. Highs is the Charging Bull, and Audi TZ is the Matador. He controls. Shout out to Masdika for the Matador title, but the Charging Bull, I will take full credit for that. But so with the Charging Bull, Highs, you need someone to direct him, where to go, where to be aggressive, etc. And Audi TZ creates that opening, creates that chance. And Rebellion Zion are looking scary now, better with Renbu than there's in Suelo, actually. So, fun fact, Rebellion Zion swapped in Renbu, the rookie mid laner from MDL, for Suelo, the veteran that we've seen in Rebellion for such a long time. And so far, I was against the idea at first because I love Suelo. He's a player with personality, something you don't really see in Indo MLBB, but he's good. He's better than Suelo. And I hope they keep him around now, get him to develop even more because Rebellion are looking like actual serious dark horses. Now let's move on to Geek Fam versus Alter Ego. Honestly, this was just sad. If the previous day we said that, you know, there's a chance that they could have won, there's a chance they could have come back and, you know, took control back of the game and, you know, using the utility junglers made the right adaptations. This was them reverting. I don't know why they reverted after having such a good performance against Onyx with utility junglers. They decided, hey, you know what would be a great idea? If we go back to the assassins, if we force Sully Boy, who has matured and now can take the utility jungle role, who is clearly not comfortable on the assassin jungle. Let's force him to go back assassin. I think at this point, it's time to stop blaming Sully Boy alone. You can blame Sully Boy all you want, saying he has old mechanics, etc. He's not as fast as he used to be. He is... he's not as good, but you have to blame the coaches at this point. I don't know what they are thinking, giving him Fanny, giving him Ling again and again. It just feels like I don't know what they're doing. I really don't. I cannot fathom what's going on, the adaptations that they are making. But again, this is just my perspective through the caster lens. I don't know what they're actually thinking behind the stage. I don't know what the discussions are, and maybe Sully Boy was the one who asked for Fanny. Maybe Sully Boy was the one who asked for Ling in game number 2. By the way, Ling again. I instantly voted for Geek Fam after seeing the Ling. That should say everything about this matchup. And Geek Fam just played well. I think Geek Fam just outclassed Alter Ego. Nile is a better version of Sully Boy than Sully Boy is right now. We had a stat sheet come up during this matchup. It was Nile versus Sully Boy because Sully Boy was... The story coming into week 2 was Sully Boy only cares about kills, not objectives. But even then, in terms of objectives, in terms of kills even, against Nile, he's nowhere close. Sully Boy was number 15 in kills, in total kills, most kills. He's number 15, ranked 15 in MPL Indo. And Nile was ranked 2 in most kills in MPL Indo. So even the stat that he was relying on, he goes for kills instead of objectives, he doesn't even do that. It's Nile beating him in every single aspect, and Geek Fam absolutely outclassing them. So we'll move on over to the big match. RRQ versus EVOS, the classical derby, my dudes. Okay. The classical derby. RRQ versus EVOS. To start this off, I will tell you guys that I personally predict matches now in MPL Indonesia based on drafts. Okay? So it's no longer the mere curse that I'm trying to rely on here. I'm relying on the drafts. And I voted EVOS 3 matches in a row, or 3 games in a row. Because honestly, I've asked everyone that I know about this, that I trust about this, and all of them agree. Evo's had 3 winning drafts, but they were just not able to execute. I think it's very easy to see my perspective on this. Your perspective, your opinion may differ, but Evo's Legends in game number 1, very clear win conditions at place, and a big mistake from carry that I even wrote down on my and I actually questioned on my iPad here. Weakness finder carry, something that we have not seen before, and turns out it was a mistake by Skylar. That was unintentional. He was choosing a skin and he forgot to change his emblem. So glad I caught that. Glad we mentioned it on the broadcast as well, and glad we didn't really give it too much of like praise. We were actually questioning it, and glad that we were right. So our analysis isn't that bad, or is actually pretty good. But yeah, Evo's Legends game number 1, very clear what they were going for, right? Eve Bea Kaja, typical standard draft, but the Akai here was to try to delay a lot of the sieges that they would expect from RRQ's draft, especially considering they have a Hellcurt in the jungle, a jungler that, even though farms fast, won't be able to participate in the fights until he gets into that power spike. And I think Evo's Legends now are very scary because they understand exactly when they hit those power spikes. Evo's Legends, in all 3 games, they forget about the first turtle completely. They just give it over to RRQ, and I think that's a great move. It's a sign of discipline from Evo's Legends, because they know when their power spikes hit, instead of fighting and going for random skirmishes that won't help them anyways, they go for what's important, which is, like we mentioned, getting to that power spike. And with the Hellcurt hitting the power spike, that last team fight was just beautiful. Mirko doing the official Taz shot call. And for game number 2 as well, I honestly feel like with Valentina, Terizla, Franco, Brody, and Bane, they had the better draft. They were able to siege. They were able to control the early game, neutral objectives even. And RQ were kind of lost up until they didn't. Up until Evo's Legends took way too many fights for no apparent reason. Yes, they're a team fight composition, but when you already have such a big lead, when you already have a good spot, like with map pressure, you do not want to go for these fights. Early to mid, these fights were okay, but towards the end, I wasn't a big fan. And then the last game happened. The last game, also, it was me thinking that Evo's had the better draft. I think in game number 3, it really showed that mentally they got hit. RQ held the momentum in game number 2 after winning, comeback. In game 3, it was the same. It was Evo's Legends leading. It was Evo's Legends dominating up until they didn't. I think they got a bit too gun shy. I think, the plus point of Evo's Legends in match number 1 was that they were very disciplined. But in game number 3, I honestly feel like it's the opposite. I honestly feel like it's them being too disciplined. They're too disciplined that they get too gun shy. There were a lot of moments where I felt like they could have committed even more and gotten a few more kills and pushed even more to get more ground on the map, on the Lord, but they didn't. It feels like they were playing very safe, a bit too safe, and that gave RQ the edge, because RQ, when you make a mistake against RQ, it is not a small mistake. Any mistake, whether it be a minuscule mistake, it will be a big one that RQ can exploit. RQ are that team. They're a very reactive team. I will draw similarities between RQ and Blacklist International M3. They're reactive. They're not a proactive team that looks for crazy things on the map, especially against teams like Evo's Legends who really understand when their power spikes hit. RQ are very reactive. It's very interesting to say this because they've been winning in a lot of early game skirmishes, but against top teams, they're reactive. This has happened against Onyx even as well. Reactive in a way where they wait for these mistakes. They force these mistakes out through macro decisions, through how they rotate. And if you notice, RQ have been playing a bit kind of like the Ube. Even their heroes are pretty similar to what Blacklist International played at M3. Aside from the new heroes, obviously, but again, trio mid-centric, rotates across the map, plays strong side to gold, leaves the XP kind of alone, gets the gold lane ahead. Now, at the time, it was Haji and Oheb, getting Oheb ahead and putting utility junglers on Wise. But the only difference being the roamer is aggressive, initiator, right? And back then in M3, you will say, hey, no, Mirko, RIQ picks up assassins. That's not wise. It's not Blacklist. I'll say, I said it gives me, there are similarities to Blacklist because at M3, it wasn't also just utility junglers from Wise. It was utility and marksman, right? For RRQ, it's utility / assassin. So that's the difference. The only difference being the jungle and the roamer. Roamer is aggressive, so complete opposite of Venus. And jungler is a utility assassin, not utility marksman. But the way they play, it's very similar. You can watch their games again. Maybe you can tell me what you think about this, if you guys agree or not. But I think through that reactive playstyle, they were able to exploit a lot of the mistakes that EVOS Legends made in the match, and then ultimately win the match. And finally, the last day of MPL Indonesia Season 12 Week 2, Alter Ego EVOS. EVOS Legends again displayed a very, very good draft, displayed very good discipline. They were able to, I would say, outclass Alter Ego. They did. I think they outclassed Alter Ego. And this was an Alter Ego with Rossi, so it's already very different. But the problem still lies with Alter Ego going for assassins. Game 1, I remember, I saw the Baksha pick from Alter Ego, and I was like, no way. They're going back with Rossi here. They're going back to their Season 11 strats, which made them get top 3. My goodness, I can't wait to see this. They pick up the Hellcurt last pick. And then game 2, they pick up the Ling. At this point, EVOS Legends didn't even deny the Ling away from Alter Ego in game number 2. That's how bad it has gone. That's how much teams of All right, boys, here it is. This is the power rankings for week number 2, or based on week number 2. We're also going to be taking into account Snapdragon Pro Series, and we'll start with Alter Ego, right? A team who right now has zero clue of its identity, of how to win the game, the winning conditions and everything. I think it has to start. A lot of people are blaming Sully Boy, but a lot of it needs to be pointed out to the coaches as well. I mean, what are they doing? Sully Boy hasn't been performing on Assassins, but they've continuously forced Sully Boy on Assassins, not giving him utility at all. I think this is like, we just have to put them in rest in peace tier. This is the rest in peace tier. This is for teams that I think just have zero hope right now. They obviously can change. They can obviously be the actual dark horse, because I don't expect them to do anything good this season if they continue this way. But after saying so many things, after criticizing them, maybe they'll be able to take this in a good way where they can improve and move on. Next is Aura Esports. Now, for Aura Fire, a lot of you guys and a lot of the talents, everyone have said that, you know, Aura Fire, yeah, I mean, they're looking bad right now, but again, they have... I'm basing this based off week 2, right? I know that Samo has been revealed to join Aura Fire. It's a big roster rumor that we'll talk about in Sarcast. But based off week 2, I cannot put them in rest in peace. I will put them as B tier. I'll just put them as a they're just a very okay team. They're a very mid team. That's what B is. Let's just say mid. They're just a very mid team right now. They're not good, but they're not bad. They are good. Some of their members are good, but not all of them are, you know? And if Kimura fixes the errors, if Samo comes in and becomes like the actual good roamer that Aura Fire needs, I think they can actually move up to A. Bigatron Alpha, I will put them in A tier. I honestly feel like they are still pretty good despite their mishap against RRQ. They can come back from this. They can learn from it. I think the biggest problem for Bigatron now is only the mentality. It's kind of like Onyx Season 10, Onyx M4. Their mentality is just not there yet. And given time, I will agree. I will actually say that Bigatron Alpha can get better, maybe even to S tier. Moving on to EVOS Legends, I will put EVOS Legends above Bigatron Alpha because... honestly, from their performances recently, they have been a bit more promising than Bigatron Alpha, and it's pretty painful for me as a Bigatron fan. But I gotta be honest, looking at EVOS Legends, the way that they've been playing, it's been much better, especially Taz. I want to give props to Taz because Taz, he's looking like a world beater, man. He's playing like an absolute unit, and if EVOS Legends get their MDL EVOS icon players like Ivan and Krite, etc. next seasons, they will only be stronger. So, hey, expect EVOS Legends to move up maybe next week. Geek Fam. I'll say Geek Fam is a very mid team as well. I think they're still too one-dimensional. For EVOS Legends, if it's not like Taz can carry, is usually Taz Esports, pretty one-dimensional too. But Brands can also carry. Now, a lot of you guys will hate on him, but hey, against RQ, he made that one mistake. That was the only mistake he made. If it wasn't for that, they would have won the game. All right? In the other games, against Geek Fam game number 1, Taz was carrying until mid-game, but when Brands got the power spike on the Leslie, he was carrying. So they have 2 ways of carrying, and even more with Hijome. But for Geek Fam, it's just Beloy. Beloy, if he makes the right call, the team wins. If he gets the right picks, the team wins. But if he doesn't, it's over. And if his teammates troll, like what happened against EVOS, then they don't. Unfortunately, Geek Fam are very limited, and that's why they're mid, in my opinion here. Dewa United, Dark Horse. Now, why do I put them as Dark Horse instead of mid? It's because they actually have a lot more to offer, I would say, than Geek Fam and Aura Fire right now, right? Geek Fam can obviously improve. But yeah, it's funny how I put Dark Horse below mid. It's because being like a bombastic team is what I will call, like the Dark Horses here would be bombastic teams who have a lot more glimpses of brilliance compared to the top tier teams. Because Dewa United, when they are ahead, you don't actually see them make like a big throw, but they're just always 50-50, you know? When they can team fight against the top teams. Against Onyx, they were able to team fight and they almost won against Onyx in game number 2. So they have shown that, like, you know, they are here not just as like a random new team. They're actually pretty good, and with their team fighting style, with their mechanical prowess, they can be like the Genflix Airwolf. Remember Genflix Airwolf season 7, making it all the way to top 3. I have that. There's that aura about Dewa, man. Yeah. They were there. Onyx, needless to say, I'll just put them in S tier, even with the changing rosters. Still goated, still so good, still, god damn it, man. This above the skies lies Onyx. Rebellion Zion, oof. Yes, I think Rebellion Zion can be Dark Horses. I think if Rebellion Zion uses their Matador, or if their Matador, ODTZ is their Matador, uses the Charging Bull, the aggressiveness of highs properly, they can be a top team, actually. These 2 teams are very scary. Can't wait to see what happens next in this build-up. Oh, so cool. But now, I have to put RQ right there in number 1 now. With Onyx. Because I honestly feel like Onyx, with their main lineup, should still be able to beat RQ. That's why I put RQ here in second S tier. But if it's just based on week 2 performance, I'll put RQ right there, right? They showed that they have everything. They have everything right now so far. Remember, though, it's very scary to be a top team in the beginning of the regular season, okay, guys? So a lot of teams now won't just be looking at Onyx, they'll all be looking at RQ as well to try to dethrone, to try to read them out. And even me myself, I've written notes of what RQ does better and how they draft and things like this. These patterns, now they're in the hot seat. Now they're up top. They're very early on the season. Hopefully they can stay consistent, but that lingering threat of being taken off the S tier can always happen. Staying on top can always happen too if they stay up and consistent. So here it is, guys. Let me know if you guys agree with the power rankings of Season 12 so far. Post Week 2, we will do updated power rankings every single week. And with that, that marks the end of MPL Indonesia Season 12 Week 2 Mircap, the Mirko recap. Thank you guys so much for watching. If you guys agree or disagree, please leave it down in the comment section down below. And let me know what you guys think. Let me know if you think you would change anything here, or if you just agree. You know, if you like the video as well. Come on, guys. I need my likes, and share it to everyone you know. All right, because I need views as well. I need money, man. I'm joking. But if you dislike the video, then dislike it. Okay. Yeah, nerds. See ya, guys. Peace out.